Rambling Roxy's Adventures Through History. Today we're going to learn all about maps. Are you excited about that? Well, if not, I'm going to make you excited about it because I love maps. As you can tell, I like to wear them, I like to look at them. I've always been fascinated with maps, except for Google Maps, which gets me lost. I don't know how. Well, maps can tell us so much about our environment. There are many different kinds, and I'm going to show you some and show you how they're useful and how we can read them. We're mainly going to focus on maps of Ohio because I'm from Ohio and I love Ohio, and it goes great with Ohio history and everything that we're going to delve into with our future episodes as far as it goes into the types of things on the maps. So first of all, some things about maps. They all have a compass. So before we learn about the different types, let's learn how to read a map. So they all have a compass. This one just happens to have a compass pointing north with the letter N for north. That's a simple way to tell that the direction is north this way. Many of them might have fancy compasses. Personally, I like the fancy compasses. I put them on my walls and everywhere and decorate with them. And then there's also a scale. This lets you know the distance on a map. So if you're looking here, this looks huge, but really Ohio is very small in comparison to the entire world. So this lets you know about how many miles. You always want to read it because it'll say like 1 inch equals 40 miles. Some maps, 1 inch equals thousands of miles. It just kind of depends on the map. And that's why we have a scale to help us figure that out. They also have a key that helps us read the map. Like this map right here has all different colors. And it indicates like the different types of soils and the different types of rocks that we have here in Ohio. And as you notice, this is actually a map that shows the glacier that moved through Ohio thousands of years ago. So this line right here shows where this big glacier, a glacier is a giant sheet of ice that pushed its way into Ohio, and it stopped about here, where the start of the Appalachian Mountains are. As you know, southern Ohio is kind of hillier. The northern part of Ohio is flat because the glacier came through and just scraped everything off. And it left different deposits, and as the glacier was receding or moving backwards, it was melting, so it was creating little rivers trickling their way down to the Ohio, and that left different rock and soil deposits as well. So as you notice, looking at this, there's all kinds of different things that you could learn from figuring out what kind of rocks and soil there are in Ohio, where old riverbeds used to be. This might be helpful in looking for some artifacts because generally people live near rivers. So if you're like, oh, I had an ancient river in my backyard, maybe I'll go out and look for some arrowheads. That might be a good place to start. And also, as the glacier is moving down, the glaciers came down from Canada and they moved different things into our area. Down here in the Hocking Hills, when you go visit there, you'll notice that there's different kinds of trees that live down in the valleys. They're called hemlock trees. They're kind of a pine tree, but those were actually brought down from Canada. The seeds were in the glacier and they just moved down, and the environment in the Hocking Hills happens to be a great location for them to grow. But they don't grow anywhere else in Ohio really, so it's kind of a cool, different little ecosystem that's the same as another place, but it's different. And then this next map, this shows all the Native American groups that lived in Ohio prior to European settlers coming in. So this can kind of show you, maybe if you're out looking for arrowheads in your backyard, if they aren't pre-Columbian arrowheads, so arrowheads from before European settlers, you might be able to determine what tribe they might have belonged to. It's also interesting because it's nice to know the original inhabitants of the land before we got here. This shows the Ohio Canal system. They were basically man-made, hand-dug rivers running around Ohio because Ohio needed more ways to transport goods. I'll do several episodes on Ohio canals. Don't you worry. I know you're just wanting to know way more about these canals. As you can see, the canals connected major cities and the waterways. This is very important to get goods around and people around. And there weren't any rivers here, so they needed to make one and transport goods easier because there weren't cars. It's really hard to travel places without cars. Obviously, we don't still use the canals, so this map doesn't seem like it's as useful, but maybe you want to see what the canals look like. This would be a great place to show you where there might be some old locks. And yes, there were no major roads in the 1830s, so why was this important? So try to figure out, like, why would this be important? As we just stated, you could go look for some canals. Here are also a map of the railroads. As you notice, it kind of follows the canal lines. The railroads moved in right after the canals kind of got built, and railroads just move things faster. But why reinvent the wheel? So you already have these major cities and areas of importance located along the canal system. Why not go ahead and utilize them for your railroad? Makes sense, right? Because if you have a big city like Columbus, you're going to want to take goods there. Why bypass it completely? So a lot of the railroads are built along canal lines, not obviously in the canal because they'd be underwater, right? And that's a lot of bridges to build, but they were built alongside them. So as you look at this, the major stops, there's also an older map showing the Wheeling-Cincinnati Railroad specifically, but there's lots of other major railroads through here as well. Does this look kind of familiar? Well, we're going to skip ahead and I'll show you why it might look familiar to you as well. Here's our interstate system, which is something that you probably need to use if you're looking at Google Maps. So make sure that when you're looking at old maps, maybe compare them to modern ones. The major highways, canalways, and railroads went into similar places, so it's a good idea to just compare them sometimes. Okay, this map shows precipitation in Ohio. That means rain and snow. As we get to the darker areas, darker red, that means we've got more rain and snow occurring. Up here we get a lot of lake effect snow. That might affect you if you're wanting to have a snow removal business. That'd be a good place to go, right? Down here they're not getting near as much precipitation. So make sure, that's another reason why maps are so important, because you can find out all kinds of things. Maybe you're a farmer and you want to grow a certain kind of crop. You'll need to focus on one of these major areas. If you have a crop that requires a lot of water, you'll want to go grow your maybe rice or something in a place that needs a lot more water. Or down here is a good place for soybeans and wheat because they don't require near as much rain as some of the other crops do. Also, here are some maps you might have seen in your history books. These are maps of resources in Ohio. Now, why would this be important? Are you going to necessarily go digging in your backyard for these things? Not necessarily, but these kind of maps would be very important to companies looking to set up shop in Ohio. Say you're someone who wanted to open up a pottery studio. We have lots of areas of clay in Ohio. We would probably want to look around and find a place that had clay nearby. Then we don't have to transport the clay so far to make our pottery. It's kind of nice that way. If you have a choice to set up your business anywhere in a particular area, you might want to set it up closer to where the goods actually are. Even though now we have trains and interstate highways and the semi can bring it to you really quick, we've realized recently that it's really important to be able to have things shipped to you quickly. And what's more quickly than having that access to those resources right in your backyard? This also makes things more profitable to the company. You don't have to pay someone to ship that product all across the country. It's right there in your backyard. You still might have to process it. I don't think you can just dig clay straight out of the earth and make good pottery out of it. I'm not a pottery expert by any means, but I think you have to do a few more things. Also, there's some places that have salt. There's also a few places that have a lot of iron deposits. That'd be a great place to set up a steel mill. As we know, when we learn future history and the Industrial Revolution, we'll see that we have some steel mills that are still operating today. That's why they have them in that area, because there is already iron deposits in the ground, which is super helpful. Here's another map that's a little bit easier to see. Some more resources in Ohio. Oh, and look, they have a fancy compass, the one that I like the best. So as you can see, these are all different kinds of maps. There's tons more maps that you can look at on your own, not just Ohio, but anywhere, and you can kind of see what you learn. If you're looking at a resource map, it's kind of good to like maybe ask questions like, oh, there's a lot of chickens in this area. What would be a business that I could start up near where chickens are grown? Ooh, maybe something that uses a lot of eggs. Maybe I want to open up a crepe shop. Those would be yummy, wouldn't they? Well, until next time, please hit the subscribe button and you can watch more of my episodes. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment and I'll try to answer them as I can. And maybe you have ideas that you would like to learn more about and would like me to make episodes about, and I will be happy to try to accommodate those requests. Until next time, Ramblers Roxy's adventures will continue. Thank you.